All right, friends, we are live across YouTube and Facebook right now, and I will want to welcome you to come and spend a little bit of time with us as we do our latest catching up with. This is the first week in October, and may I just take a moment to express my commiserations to any Manchester United fans who might be watching right now. And if you're not a football fan at all, you won't realise that they lost 6-1 this afternoon to Tottenham Hotspur. But listen, we're not going to dwell on that at all. Instead, I'm going to celebrate for a moment the fact that we right now are in a nappyless household for the first time in 8 whole years. So I think that's very impressive. And as people start to join us live, I just want to welcome you here. And it's a real privilege to be back and chatting to you live this evening. And when anyone comes along and joins us on these kind of chats, we would just encourage you to, if you have particular questions about anything that we're going to be talking about this evening, you are so welcome to interact with us. You can throw a question on our kind of Facebook comments or on the YouTube comments. They'll appear in front of me, and hopefully we'll be able to engage with a whole bunch of different people this evening. But tonight, what we're going to be doing on the whole is we're going to be talking about motivation. We're going to be talking about fitness. We're going to be talking about keeping yourself healthy. And for some of this evening, we've got the amazing Simon Holley with us. Simon, I'm going to throw you in now. So here comes Simon into our chat. Good evening, sir. And we've also got the amazing Dan Frammingham with us tonight. Dan, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Yeah, really good.
Yeah,
really
very good, Dan.
And
good to see you.
What's super fun is that people immediately jumping in, and maybe I need to avoid the football chat. Mike is already ribbing me about the fact that Forest's start to the season has been very poor indeed. But listen, let's not start there. Simon, mate, how you doing? You had a good day, and you've been at church live today for the first time in a while, haven't you? How was it?
Yeah, we were there for we were doing Raw Church last Sunday, so we missed it. But this Sunday we were there live. So yeah, it was good. I think overall good. There was lots of teething stuff to work through, but it was great to see people's faces. It was great. Tim led a liturgy part of the worship, which went really well. So without the singing, it felt like we could really connect with the presence of God. Got opportunity to pray for people. I preached live. So yeah, it was great. It was a great start.
Brilliant. Dan, how have you been finding lockdown, my friend? You guys coping okay?
Yeah, we're doing okay. We're in the process of sort of moving house. So added with that stress of lockdown, chucking, moving a house, that's been somewhat stressful. But yeah, on the whole, I think we're doing well. We've adapted to, a new way of life, as it were. But yeah, we're doing well.
Brilliant. Well done, guys. Well, listen, I'll tell you where this all kind of came from, really, because there's a recognition, I think, that at the moment that lots of people are really battling for motivation. And it's strange because, coming back in September, as it were, kind of post-holidays, I think many people would say that even those people like me who wouldn't normally struggle for motivation, because of what's been going on in lockdown, kind of coming back in September, probably not with the same level of energy and sense of excitement. I think people generally, and Simon and I were having a kind of conversation about this, of realizing they've just got to dig a little deeper. And whether you are one of those people or whether you're the sort of person who actually is finding other people around them who are struggling a little bit with motivation or struggling a bit with their own disciplines. I don't know, Simon, I wonder whether you could start by sharing a little bit about why you think it is that people are struggling right now.
I will, Steve. Just one thing, your audio is pretty choppy, but it might just be me. Is it choppy for you, Dan, as well, or is it just me?
He's pretty clear, crystal. This
okay, it's me. Yeah, so fine, good. I just think it's lots of different things, Steve. I think when people's plans get changed, I think all of our plans have been up in the air. So people had things they were looking forward to. I think the original lockdown, people thought, okay, we'll just get through this, and then with the summer, and then of course the summer was pretty trash for most people. Even those who did manage to get away, then were stressed about, am I going to be able to get back? The quarantine. So I think people's plans has been massively impacting motivation. I think the thought of the winter, the threat of potential more lockdowns is affecting motivation as well. It's like it feels like a long winter ahead of us. I think that's affecting people. I think overall people's fitness levels dropped during lockdown. I think that was the overall message, which I think, again, when you get out of discipline in one area of your life, I think it affects other areas as well. And so that kind of lots of habits and routines got thrown. I think some good things started, but I think for a lot of people, bad habits came in. And so that helped lost motivation. I think also structure, people's week. My kids didn't even know what day of the week it was for about 3 months. So I think rhythm helps motivation as well. And I think when that structure of your week, the regular routines gets thrown, I think that affects motivation. And I think lots of the things that we all artificially rely on got shifted and got changed, whether it's spiritually through the church or emotionally through, connecting with family on a semi-regular basis, or just things that we don't realize that will help our overall motivation, I think just got washed away. And so I think you're kind of left with the bare bones of what actually motivates you as a human being, what gets you up in the morning. And lots of those things were very disorientatingly lost, I think. So I think that was numbers of other things. I'm sure Dan's got some thoughts as well. He's far more an expert on motivation than I.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, one of the reasons. No, it's great. Simon, your reception is a little bit shaky, mate. So I'm going to stick with Dan for a minute, and we'll see how we get on. Dan,
let me take my AirPods out.
No worries. Dan, I'd love to know your sort of situation now. One of the things I'm going to get you to do in a little while. In fact, let's take Simon out for a second. One of the things I'm going to get you to do tonight is I'm going to get you to share with us in a little while a little bit about your story, a little bit about your kind of journey in health and fitness, and the thing you're doing right now. But for those people, Dan, who don't know you well, why don't you start by just introducing yourself, and then maybe you could share with us a little bit about your thoughts on the same thing. How people are doing in terms of their general motivation right now.
Yes, so I'm married to Charlene. Many will know Charlene. She works for the church. Have two children, Caitlin, who's 9, and Malachi, who will be 7 in a couple of weeks. And we, I grew up in London. Spent the best part of 30 years in London, and we decided to move to Bedford probably about 6 years ago. We had a few friends that were here, so we came up, and it was a bit of a process moving here. But we ended up here about 6 years ago. Got stuck into the church. I think we was in a church plant in London, and we sort of felt like we just needed a bit of a change. Been in that environment. London's quite a fast pace, and bringing kids up. For sure. So we just felt like a bit of a change, and we felt God leading us up here. We sort of came to Bedford, and that was it really. I think it's very different growing up in London. The pace of life is very different to growing up in in Bedford. I think sometimes people tell me traffic's bad in Bedford. I'm like, boy, you haven't lived in London.
It's like you've got no idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So
to be fair, I am one of those people who grumbles about Bedford traffic. I don't know whether we should collectively start some kind of prayer meeting for Bedford traffic. I think there'll be people commenting left, right, and centre. I'm sure, but not as bad as London, though, right, Dan?
No, definitely not. So then I think it was a bit of a process, sort of transition into sort of town life, and I was still commuting to London, 2-3 times a week. But I think we've grown to love the place, and I think whenever we go back as a family, we don't really do it. We've not done it too often, but when we do go back, we definitely notice the sort of the pace of life. We're like, boy, it's definitely different, and we much prefer it up here. So then in Bedford, kids settled into school, we settled into the church, and that's it really. Sort of 6 years. It's gone pretty quick. It's gone pretty quick.
Yeah. So someone who is a coach, someone who is a kind of, what would you call yourself? Fitness instructor? Tell me.
Yeah, so I would call myself a personal trainer, but
personal
trainer often sometimes got a bit of a bad sort of connotation to the name. So personal trainer, coach, interchangeable. Yeah, either's fine.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And so obviously Simon was reflecting that obviously in this season, unusual though it is, over this last 6 or 7 months, that generally people's motivation has struggled. Sometimes people have put on weight, slowed down, less connected to what they would normally do. Is that something you've seen?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I would, I had a few thoughts, and Simon stole them all. I think it is that structure, it's that rhythm, it's that sort of lack of almost not knowing what day it's, knowing what time it is. But I think when things the carpet gets pulled off underneath, I think it can be difficult. We get a bit disorientated and trying to find out, okay, well, what is driving me, what is motivating me? So I think those things, the lack of structure, the lack of routine, kids are at home. I think it just takes a while just to sort of reorientate ourselves and sort of get ourselves back on track. And I think for many people, it is definitely a struggle. It definitely is a struggle.
Yeah, I hear that. All right, well, listen, I'm going to bring Simon back in. And obviously, we recognise that, Simon, you're back in with us, my friend. Hopefully, this will be a bit smoother.
Is that better? Is that better now? I'm on 4G now, and I've got rid of the AirPods, so hopefully that's a bit better.
Let's see how we get on. Okay. I'm being told off. Katie Holloway's telling me off, saying that I'm being a bit harsh by kicking you out. Apologies. It's one of those strange things where I've got the power right now, guys.
Yeah, that's right. Use it.
Well, listen, I will say good evening to those of you who are kind of tuning in just now, kind of 10 minutes in, and we've got 30 odd people kind of watching with us across YouTube and Facebook. Guys, great to have you with us. And we want to make this as interactive as we can, okay? And so if there are particular questions that you want to put to Dan in and around any of these topics around health and motivation and fitness and so on, please do feel free to do that. And we've got Simon probably for the next 15 minutes or so. And so if there's anything particularly you want to ask him right now, I'd be really grateful if you would send them in early too. And Dan, you've even got comments about how impressive your beard is, my friend.
The beard, definitely. It's taken a few years to grow.
I bet it has. Well, Kath Marriott is a very good friend of our church, and she is celebrating the beard this evening. So, yeah, great to have you with us, guys. Well, listen, both of you have shared a little bit about the fact that people's motivations are struggling, okay? And, Simon, why don't you dive in, mate? And I know you've been putting some thought and effort, and you've even been helping us as a staff team kind of working out next steps for us in terms of our motivation. Can you put in some sort of foundations for us? What do you feel like is important for people right now?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things is to get down to the foundations of why do you do what you do? Why do you do what you do? And I think biblically, I think there's lots of places you could go. I think for me, for John 4, when Jesus said, "My food," the story of the Good Samaritan, the Samaritan lady at the well, the disciples coming back and say, you've not had lunch, and he's chatting to this lady. And Jesus says a profound statement of, "My food is to do the will of him who sent me." And I think it's, look, see, the fields are white for harvest. It's that whole passage. And I think it's recognizing that Jesus's base motivation was much deeper than many of our motivations can be. Is actually to say, God, what's your will? That's the thing that's driving me. We always say in King's Arms, what's God saying to you, and what are you going to do about it? But foundational to that is Jesus's desire to see the world saved. And actually, he when the disciples question his motivation and why he's doing some of the things he's doing, he's like, my basic drive is to do what the Father's will is, and the Father's will is to redeem a lost planet. It's to see a planet saved. It's to see the fields of harvest come in. And I think sometimes in times like this, we've got it's a helpful focus. Is that our base motivation? Is the reality of the great commandment, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and the great commission, go and make disciples of all nations? Is that what's driving us in life? Or
very good.
Have some of the other things started to come in, and and it's not that the other things are bad, it's that they're not foundational. And that actually all these other things can be on top of and can sometimes smother the base foundation of why do we live? Why hasn't God just saved us and taken us to heaven, if we're Christians? Well, it's because there's work for him to do. The Father's got good work for us to do.
Yes.
And so I think that's one foundational thing. I think if that even that's a struggle, then I always boil down to, I think it's Micah 6:8, where it's what does, I think when Micah, when sometimes even as Christians we can read this and that and the other, and think, I've got to do this, that, and the other, and it all gets a bit overwhelming. And whenever I feel that way, I always boil down to Micah 6:8, which is, oh man, what does God require of you? But to love justice and to do kindness and to walk humbly with your God. I don't think that's, to me, is like, that's about as simple as you can get it. When you're just completely overwhelmed, then look to love justice and look to be kind to people and look to walk humbly with God, and you won't go far wrong. And sometimes we get in that state, we're just kind of overwhelmed with everything. And then the basics is that, to love justice, to look for where we can do justice, to look for where we can be kind, and to walk humbly with God, to do the basics well, to read his word, to pray and to seek his face, to worship, just to boil it really back down. And so I think for anyone who's like really kind of just been completely overwhelmed, I would say boil down to that verse, stay in that verse for a while, and you'll find yourself recentered, I think, on why we do what we do and the foundations of what we do.
Yeah, very good. Well, listen, I'm gonna ask the masses for a minute. So if you're watching right now and you are watching on Facebook, Simon to me is still a little bit stuttery, but before Katie tells me off, tell me if that's also affecting you guys. All right, you can tell me in the text, and if so, I might have to nudge him as well. No, it's totally fine. Listen, so appreciate what you're doing. I think there's sometimes, I particularly with those people I lead or even my children, I think it's so important to boil things down, keep things super simple. Like one of the habits that I've kind of got into with my children as I kind of drop them off for school every day is just talk about, hey, look, guys, what's your mission today? And asking them, right, what is that? And they always kind of repeat back to me. And we talk it through to say, right, it's about loving God and it's about loving people. Love God, love people. This is what it's about. And if you reduce things back, I think that's very close to the why. Some people saying it's a little bit of a poor connection, but they're coping all right, Simon. So we'll keep you in for the time being. You've got a stay of execution, my friend. Dan, why don't you give us some early thoughts, mate, before we dive into any specifics? Like, if people are struggling with motivation in this season, what would your suggestions be?
I mean, I think one of the things that I found really helpful for me is trying to find, again, I suppose, try not to overcomplicate it. Just trying to think of really simple things that So, for example, sometimes when I meet new people and clients and stuff, we'll talk about the regularity in terms of how many times they want to work out a week, or sometimes super motive, they say, I want to work out 5 times a week or 4 times a week or every day type of thing. And I'm like, that's great. That's really good. But try and think about what happens when life gets super, super busy.
Right.
What happens then? Because I think exercise often is one of the first things that seems to go for many people for many different reasons. So I try to say to people, look, when life is super, super busy, could you keep doing once a week? Could you keep doing twice a week? Right. And if they go, yeah, I think I could do it, we'll start with that. So even if they may have, right at the beginning, they may have more capacity or more motivation to do 3, 4, 5 times a week. I'm like, why don't you start with 1? Why don't you start with once, twice a week, something like that? So that when life gets busy, you can still do that. And if you can do more, chuck more in. So it's all about trying to keep things super simple and almost trying to sort of play the long game and think, okay, look, is this sustainable for me for the next 3, 6, 12, 18 months? The answer is no. Bring it down. If the answer is yes, crack on.
Because we do this in all sorts of areas of our lives, don't we? And I'm hoping that people will be able to relate to me. But I'm one of those guys who, January 1st comes along and it's like, okay, it's resolution time. Everything's going to change. I'm going to read my Bible for an hour every day. I'm going to make sure that, there's this really good fitness time. We're going to transform the way we eat and those kind of things. And then in reality, that first week, it's great. Everyone's fired up. And again, please give me some encouragement, guys, if this is you as well. But, sometimes it's that reality of the fact that unless you work out what's sustainable in your life, then nothing's ever going to really take a rhythm and take a bite, isn't it? But I mean, Simon, what are you for a minute while we've got you? Talk to me about what some of your regular disciplines are. And obviously, whilst we're talking about health and fitness and so on, I'd love to know just even more broadly than that. What do regular disciplines look like in your life as a rhythm?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, for example, I found that when I used to try and I've got to make sure I get prayer in every day, and I found that, and I do pray. I do pray regularly every day. But I used to I've got to have an hour of prayer a day, and I did that for a season. But after a while, I found that actually it was more beneficial for me and my work lifestyle to do Wednesday mornings. Obviously, not everyone can do this because, but in my role, I can. And so, actually, to take the whole of Wednesday mornings out to pray was actually better for me than to take an hour every day. I got more quality time with the Lord in doing that. So, I think Dan's point is what actually works for you. So, I think that'll be one thing for me. I'm praying regularly during the week, but actually having a quality block of time, a longer block, is better for me than kind of trying to fit lesser time in each day. I think the other thing, actually, Dan really helped me 4 or 5 years ago when I just after I'd recovered from being very ill, my fitness was very low, and he met with me just for a couple of sessions. And one of the things he said is like, "What do you want to achieve?" I was like, "I just don't want to die young, Dan. If I can avoid it,
that's a good goal. I don't want to die young. Yeah.
I'm not trying to be Olympic, marathon runner. I just want to stay healthy. He's like, okay, well, I think you need high intensity training, and basically set me on this thing of about 7 minutes a day. He just said, do this. If you can do it 5 days a week, then great. And so I was like, so what? I just started doing that. 7 minutes. I thought, well, I can do 7 minutes. I mean, for years, I'd tried to go to the gym, and I'd spent 6 months for a non-paying gym membership and all this sort of stuff. It's just like nothing had ever worked until Dan said, you can do this 7 minutes later. It's going to make all the difference. Well, now I do about 20 minutes a day. I just do it weekdays. And I've worked up over 5 years and I'm still doing it, 5 years later. But I think sometimes Dan's absolutely right. You try and set this huge goal, this huge mountain, and you just get disappointed and fail yourself within a month or so. But it's better to do 7 minutes a day for 5 years.
100%.
Do the boom or bust, and that's worked well for me. My fitness levels has gone up. Now I can do 15, 20 minutes a day, and sometimes I only do the 7, but I'm always around or thereabouts. And I think that's one thing for me in terms of getting the rhythm in that's sustainable. I think is absolutely critical, and that's really, really helped me. And I think similarly with the foundations of reading the Word, getting in. I find it's better to get in short amounts of time every day than it is to do the huge, I'm going to do, read the Old Testament, New Testament, Psalms, Proverbs, And I used to do that and chain through the Bible in a year, but I just found it soul destroying after a while. I was just reading for the sake of reading rather than actually getting anything out of it. So again, but some people can do that, and they read through the Bible every year, and that's fine. For me, it's what works for you. But hey, good. I think I'm still chopping up, and I probably better go anyway. So it's really good to see you guys.
Always a pleasure, my friend. God bless, eh?
So good to see you.
Good to see you, Simon. See you, mate.
All right, Dan, you and me, my friend. Listen, but there's so much we could dive into, for even from the bits that kind of Simon's launched us off with. But I always want to, when we kind of get into these kind of live chats, mates, also find out a little bit about people's story. And so whilst we're going to come back to some of the health, fitness, motivation stuff, talk to me about how you met Jesus, man.
So I grew up in, very common story, grew up in a sort of Christian household. Mum and dad, love God, go to church, still do. Had a brother, still have one. And we went to church for, from very early on. I can't remember never going to church. Like Sundays was always church.
Okay.
And I think, growing up, youth, the normal sort of went through the whole sort of Sunday school, youth club, Friday night meetings, that type of stuff. And like I did really enjoy it. But then I think when I got to around about 13, 14, 15, I was just like, I'm not really sure this is for me. And I think the world was enticing me, everything the world offers. I think it was just enticing me a bit, but I still went along. Never really stopped, because I think deep down I always knew that he was real. If that makes sense. I always knew that God was real. Always knew that he died for me. I think the message that we hear week in, week out, I think it was just so entrenched in me, and I think I just knew it was true. I probably couldn't. If someone tried to tell me about your faith, I probably couldn't say much about it, but I knew deep down that he was real, that he loved me, that he died for me. But I think I just wasn't prepared to live that life. And then probably the next sort of 5 or 6 years, I still used to dip into church every now and then, but my motivation was all just to keep my parents happy. Obviously still at school, then moved out into my first job, working in the gym. And I think as soon as you move into certain environments, I think I was just... especially when there aren't, regular Christians, I stopped going to my Friday night meetings and those type of things. So I think it just wasn't really a priority in my life at all. And that was probably that sort of carried on up until I got to my, I want to say maybe early 20s, so 21, 22. But then I think I remember this every single night before I used to lay down to, go to bed. I'd put my head on my pillow and I thought, well, one day I'll follow you, God. And literally, that would be a regular occurrence every night. But then I wake up the next morning, and Karen, as it was going before. So, and then it came to a point. I was in a relationship, and it sort of didn't go well. So I broke up, and I guess that was about an 8-month journey. My brother had just come back to God. He's my younger brother, and he'd often used to say to me, "Come on, come back to church, come back to God." I was like, "Yeah, no, I will." But then literally, so that was probably 8 months of just maybe like asking a few more questions, starting to pop back to church. And then one night me and my friend of mine, we was in Estonia. It was on New Year's Eve, I think late 2007.
Right.
And I remember I had a few shandies, shall we say, and I was texting a friend of mine, and this is a girl that I'd often meet up and chat about sort of faith and, where I'm at. And I think I remember texting, I need to sort my life out.
Wow.
And then I came back, beginning of 2008, and then I went round to her house, and that was actually, as I walked in, Charlene, my wife, was actually walking out, so she lodged with her. And, that was the first time we met. And then I went in, and that night, I encountered God for the first time.
Wow. So what was it on that New Year's Eve night? So is there something going on in you that suddenly makes you want to wake up?
Yeah, I think it was just a process, right? I think there was, I look back at it now, and God was clearly sort of speaking to me. I think, I was working for someone that probably wasn't the best environment to be working in. So I think there were certain things that I was like, this is probably not good for me long term. I think obviously coming out of a relationship and then moving into, what am I doing? And I think I just started asking those questions. Look back at it now as the Holy Spirit sort of just tugging on my heart. And then I think when I was out there, I think it came to a point where I was like, what am I doing? I think I say we've all been there. I'm sure some of us have been there when we've had a few beers and you just start to think, what's happening? What am I going to do in my life?
Okay.
And then I came back and I remember sort of just, I guess thrashing the whole faith thing out for about 5 or 6 hours with a friend of mine. And then I remember just seeing a picture of God's hand sort of just coming down from the sky. And all I had to do was reach out and respond. And that was it. And then I guess sort of the rest is history, as they say.
Do you know what I love about moments like this? And I never get bored of hearing people's stories, because I always wonder, like, who are the people who are kind of listening in even right now, who are having those moments, who have, got the bottle of Buddha alongside them and thinking to themselves, do you know what? I don't know what this is all about, but would they be willing to kind of even reach out to God? And so for you as someone who I would, call very much a significant kind of pillar in the church, man of faith, invests in people all over the place in kind of spiritual ways, and amazing family. I'm thinking actually that was such a key moment for you, and all it took was actually to take a step, lean up, as it were, toward him as he met you in that place, and so much changed from that point, didn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's right. He gives us free will, right? And I think, I think I didn't know any more, if that makes sense. I think it was it was the 4th of January 2008.
Wow.
On the 5th of January I didn't know any more stuff, but I guess my heart had been, my eyes had been, open, my ears had been open, that type of stuff. So it was the work of the Holy Spirit, and I think
love it.
It was amazing. That was cool.
So cool. Well, listen, a couple of weeks ago, I interviewed a former gladiator. All right. So Warren Furman was with us. You saw it. Well, it was fascinating because I said to him as part of it, I was like, in 2 weeks' time, I've got it's my friend Dan, and we're going to talk about fitness. And then he was like, oh, so you don't want to talk to me about fitness? So I'm thinking this guy is big, and he kind of told all these stories about how he kind of got into bodybuilding and fitness and exercise and so on. But why don't you tell us your kind of journey into kind of doing what you're doing now? Have you always been passionate about health and well-being and lifting weights and all that kind of stuff, or where did it come from for you?
So I remember being 3, 4, 5 years old and watching World's Strongest Man on the TV at Christmas. You may remember, Steve, you watched that. And it was and I remember like ripping my t-shirt off and like going like that and saying to Mum, I want to be a World's Strongest Man. And it's quite embarrassing, but I never quite made that. But I think that was the first thing I can remember. And then I remember when 7 or 8, a friend of my dad's took me to the gym for the first time. It was like a boxing gym. And then I remember must have been around about 11 or something. I was like, Dad, when can I go to the gym? And he said, you had to be 14 to go to the gym. So on my 14th birthday, my dad took me to the gym. That was a gym induction. And to be honest, I've been going ever since. I used to go, it was about an hour from my school. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'd get an hour on the bus, go to the gym and then go home. And that sort of just started the process. And it just became a bit of a passion. Obviously played football, rugby, basketball, athletics. So I did all the sports at school, but there was just something about being in the gym environment, lifting weights, working out, trying to push myself as much as I possibly could and sort of see almost what the limits were. And I guess it just grew from there. And then I guess when I left school, I wasn't really massively interested in going into university or anything like that. And it felt like the natural thing would be that I'll go and work in the gym. And I think the most was like I can work out all day and I can get paid, and I can help some people. And that's pretty much what I did. I did a little bit of manual work, and I sold meat and fish behind Waitrose for a few months, but we won't talk about that. And then I was in a gym, and that was me for about three or so years. And I loved it. I learned huge amounts. It's a really cool people. And then from there, I transitioned to working for a charity in London where I was effectively teaching young people, so difficult, challenging people, or young people, 16 to 24-year-olds, how to become fitness instructors. So I'd teach the actual qualification that I did, 7 or 8 years prior. And that was so much fun. It was a Christian organisation, and there wasn't loads of politics. I had loads of opportunities to share my faith, and people would sort of ask questions. Obviously we teach and they get them qualifications, but it was a real sort of, that phrase where you look back and say they were the good old days. And I remember having a conversation with people saying, these are the good old days, because there was, it must have been about 100 staff. The majority of them were believers. It was a really cool environment. the young people were really raw. They would, a lot of them in crime, but really would respect and look up to us, the staff and stuff, just because we had so much impact in their lives and stuff. So it was a real, it was a real precious time working there. And I guess I just learned a lot about, what it means to be a father, and what it means to help people, how you speak into people's lives. So it was such a good time. And then I think after that, so that at that point, I'm late 20s now, early 30s even. We then moved to Bedford. So I was doing that for about 6 or so years, and then I obviously had to commute back and forth, and that just wasn't really working. And then I got a bit of work up here for a little bit, and then I got made redundant from my job. And it felt like at that point, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back into personal training. I mean, I'd been doing a few sort of one-to-one clients on and off throughout the years, and it was still very much my passion in terms of working out. But I wasn't sure, do I want to go back into it? It felt like maybe taking a step back. But I guess it'd been a few years since I've been in that gym environment. And I guess now, when I was first personal trainer, I wasn't a Christian. I wasn't following God. So I think now I was like, actually, and I think all the other doors started to close, and it felt like the natural progression. It felt like a natural door that was just opening for me to move back into sort of working for myself, setting up my business, and effectively doing some of the stuff that I've done before, but I guess with slightly different motivations now. So I think that's pretty much how it's gone. I think I've always been in the fitness industry in some way, shape, or form, and I guess it's just changed. Yeah, it's just changed over the years.
Really good. Well, mate, it's great to get the background, and we're gonna dive in, and I know that people are going to be posting questions as we go, and I know that I've got a few things up my sleeve as well. And but however, as people are chipping in, what I want to do is I'm going to sort of say hello to people as they join us. And there's a guy who called Harry John, and Harry has just simply asked, "Is Jesus God?" So I've got this little fancy little button. Look, and put this on the screen. And listen, the reason, Harry, that I thought I'd reference yours first is that I've just started literally last week a new online King's Arms Alpha course, and mate, if you want to ask that kind of question, you would be so welcome to join us Tuesday night. So ping me an email at alpha@kingsarms.org, and you've been really welcome to join us on Tuesday, when we'll be looking at that exact question this Tuesday night if you want to come and join us. But listen, we're going to stay on the subject of health and fitness and how that all connects in with our faith as well, if we possibly can, Dan. But listen, let's talk about the basics first, mate. All right, so if people are tuning in, okay, and they're thinking to themselves, you know what, lifestyle wise, I don't know where to start. Like, what advice do you give to people if they come to you and be like, right, I know there's no regular patterns, regular rhythms in for me. What do I do?
Good question. I think there's a couple of things. I think the first thing I would say is ask for help. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to pay for help. This is not a plug here, but I think it is a case of just asking for help.
Okay.
Or doing some type of research. I think, it's trying to think, okay, what type of things do I enjoy? I think that's the first place to start. What type of things do I enjoy? Because I think the reality is we tend to do the things and keep doing the things that we do that we enjoy. Yeah,
very true.
So I think in terms of exercise-wise and, health, if you don't enjoy it, I think, motivation will only last so long. As you said, Steve, the 1st of January, you're there, and imagine you're not going to the gym at the moment. I think the motivation may have dropped a bit.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really common for all of us. And to be fair, I say it's the same for me as well. I wouldn't say I'm hugely motivated. I think I've just built some habits and routines over the years. So now I turn up and I just do it. So I think in terms of finding something that you enjoy is key. Whether that's running, whether that is some gym, whether that's sports, whether that's doing some type of DVD work, is finding something that you enjoy. That's the first thing. And then in terms of asking for help, I mean, there's so much stuff on the internet now, and I think, pros and cons in terms of health and fitness stuff. But I think if you're, let's say, for example, you look into whether it's how do you get rid of pain, or how do you lose weight, or how do you build muscle, if you read around enough from different sources, there should be some type of thing that will come through that will give you a rough idea of what maybe the next step might be. So I think that's another thing to do. I think starting small as well, like I mentioned earlier, trying to commit to sort of 5 times a week, or, doing something, multiple times a day or whatever. I think it's going to be really difficult to keep doing that. Whereas if you think, okay, what could I do when life gets busy? What could I maintain? When the kids are ill, when work's crazy, when I've got meetings, could I still do 20 minutes a day, or could I still do half an hour twice a week? I think it's similar to what Simon said around, reading the word or praying. I think you're better off doing a little and often rather than saving up for one big run. I always say, 70% 4 times a week is better than 100% twice a week. And, I'd argue it's probably similar with a lot of things, right? So I think there's some of the things I would say that would really help. Start small, find something you enjoy, and ask for help.
Yeah, very good, very good. And it's so true that what's interesting for me is that sometimes the physical disciplines of life are so connected to and so similar to spiritual disciplines as well.
Yeah.
And so I know that people, I was once upon a time encouraged that, actually a 7-minute a day kind of window of kind of reading the word is actually a great place to start. Now 7 minutes suddenly feels, oh, hold on, that might be achievable.
Totally.
Maybe you're just going to read a single chapter, or take a moment to pause. Like, when's the best time of the day for you? And so where some people are like, all right, well, I've become a Christian now, I'm gonna read the Bible, and say, okay, let's swing it open, Genesis 1, let's do this. And they'll go through the first 1, 2, 3 books of the Bible and think, hold on a minute, I'm just getting absolutely drowned as soon as I get into Leviticus and everything, Deuteronomy, it feels so hard and so heavy right now. So have you found that there are similarities between the kind of spiritual and the physical world and how they interact?
I think so. I think, I think a bit around discipline. I think, I don't often feel, I would say, in terms of when I go to the gym or work, I mean, it's slightly different, right? Because I obviously work in the gym, so I don't have to go far. And that's not the case for the majority of people. But I think there are often times, I'll probably say 50, 60% of the times, I probably don't always feel like working out. But I do it anyway because I know it's good for me. And I think I would say it's very similar with reading the word and praying. Most of the time, I don't always feel like it. My alarm goes off pretty early because that's the only time I've really got to read, or that's the only really time I've got to myself in terms of quiet time. Yeah, of course, I could do it. I could do it in the evening, but when the alarm goes off early, come 8 o'clock in the evening, it's not probably what I'm going to give my time to. So, my concentration was gone. So I don't often feel like doing it, but I know it's good for me, and I know that is my chance to connect with God. I know that will set the tone for my day. So I'd say the discipline of, I guess, training my body, as it were, and and that type of is definitely carried over to the spiritual. And I get, for me, it's about just building those small habits. If you know anything about my social media, I often preach this whole consistency.
Yes.
And bang that same drum. And sometimes I think, should I just change it and do something else? I'm like, actually, damn, that's what works. That's what works with anything. So what's the point of changing something, right? So for me, in terms of my training, I think I've definitely noticed some of my, being disciplined with training has definitely had an impact on the spiritual life as well. So I'll say it was. And I think just to go back on something you said earlier in terms of, how do people get started? One of the things you can do is try to find things that fit into your day. So often, for example, walking is a really simple win. Obviously, everyone bangs on about sort of 10,000 steps. And whether you hit 10 or 12 or 8, I don't think that massively matters. But I think it's a case of just trying to accumulate as much as you possibly can with the opportunity you have. So, for example, I often speak to people, how could you fit exercise into your day so it causes the least amount of disruption?
Okay.
So, for example, when you go to the shop, could you walk there? Or could you park 5 minutes away and then walk and then come back? And then people say, interesting. That's only, or for example, like, let me say, you drive to church, you park right outside. Could you park right at the end or right around the back? You totally could. And then you're going to walk in. Now, those steps in and of itself aren't going to do much. But if you did that every single day, 5 days a week, 50 odd weeks a year, that would make a difference. And it's trying to find those small things with your food, with your exercise, and all those type of things, and small wins each day. Over time, the cumulative effect will make a massive difference.
Very good, very good. I mean, one of the things that I find so interesting is there are so many similarities with what you're saying and people's spiritual disciplines as well. I'll kind of illustrate it like this and say, one of the things you mentioned was finding something you enjoy. Okay, so what does it look like, for people who are tuning in right now and thinking, okay, what does it look like for me to connect with God? And sometimes you try and fit yourself into a pattern that says I'm going to be like everybody else, right? And so I need to get up first thing in the morning, or I need to read this particular book or get this amount through, when frankly everyone's wired slightly differently. And so for some people, it is, being in the shower and singing at the top of their lungs that's going to be the thing that most connects them with God. I know for me, like the difference between, being sat in a room, reading a book, or going for a walk and looking at the trees and feeling I was about to say the air in my hair. Don't laugh, people. That is obviously not the case. Yeah, Dan and I are kind of brothers from another mother there. But when you're out and about and you're walking and you're connecting with God, so the point is, I think, find something that's going to help you. Find something that's going to be unique for you in the way that you connect with God. What's the thing that brings you to life? And so, whilst there are similarities, I mean, I know for me, even kind of getting the kind of Bible in audio format and being able to listen to things massively changed things for me, because the fact that particularly through Old Testament stories, it seems to go in a different kind of way. Or the other one that I would just mention that again might just be a practical help for people would be, grabbing a highlighter. Now, some people say don't highlight your Bible, right? But for me, it makes a massive difference, because when I'm holding a highlighter, putting marks of the stuff that I feel like God's speaking to me about, it's the point where my Bible's now all sorts of different colors. And so it's so important. And it's interesting. We've got people here, just sharing different ways that they can connect with God. Some people are saying they love their audio Bible. Katie Joe, love that lady. We've got Sharon, who's all about kind of the worship. People encouraging you, saying great advice. So well done. And guys, keep the questions coming in, all right? And I'm gonna ask you a couple now, Dan, which have people have kind of sent in advance. And so a couple of people were asking, guys. A couple of guys were asking about chronic illness, Dan. Now, particularly, asking for encouragement, wisdom, people who are struggling with long-term conditions. And partly, I think, again, there's two edges to this. One would be, around the kind of spiritual side of things. The difference between is this a spiritual problem? Is this a physical problem? How do we, stay well, stay healthy in the midst of it? And so, I don't know whether you would start, could kind of share some advice in the midst of that, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I think first to say, I've never really worked with anyone who's got any sort of chronic illness. I don't definitely not the expert on this. I think I think it's very, you can't sort of say this with a broad brushstroke. Do this. But I think there are a few things. It's coming back to what we've just said, is trying to find something that does work for you. So I would imagine there'll be different severities in terms of people's illness. Yes. So I think it's just trying to come to this. Okay, well, what could I do that's not going to make me worse, right? Is that time? Is that more steps? Is that more walking? Is that be able to get outside? Is that can I go to the gym? Can I do something at home that is not going to wipe me out, or that's not going to make things worse? And I think if the question's I could do something, and I guess it's trying to find, okay, well, what could I do, and how could I implement it into my day that it doesn't massively impact everything else? I don't know whether there's different points in people's days, whether maybe energy is higher or lower. So I guess it's trying to find, okay, could I do it there? And I guess knowing that what I'm doing is going to help, not hinder. I've read a little bit about chronic illness, but not huge amounts. But things like walking, things like steady resistance training. So you probably don't want huge elevation of the heart rate, like massive spikes, but doing some steady stuff will do nothing but help strengthen bones, joints, especially as we age as well. I often work with people who are north of 50, and they've noticed nothing but sort of strength in bones, ligaments, and just everything. Their sort of functionality throughout the day is just massively improved by just doing some steady weight training, some steady low intensity. Now, obviously, that's different for chronic illness, but I wonder whether some of those things would help in terms of if you were able to fit them in. Could you do something at home? Is it something? I guess you're trying to find out what could I do. Even if it's like someone said, that 7 minutes, even if it's 5 minutes, the cumulative effect of over weeks, months, and years, as long as it doesn't hinder, it's going to have nothing but positive impact. Yeah,
very good, very good. And I think that first thing I would say is, guys, well done for asking these kind of questions. And so I can only imagine, particularly through conversations I've had, that sometimes there are people who can feel disconnected. There are some people who can feel withdrawn, and if they're almost unable to do the sort of things that other people can't. And for me, I'd always want to point you back to Jesus as well. And so if you're kind of in that position where you're kind of wrestling with what I kind of can do, almost seeking constantly reassurance from him and the other people around you. And so, one of Dan's early points of, can you get advice, who are the people to speak to? And, I guess what does accountability look like in the midst of that as well? And so there's that sense of, making a connection with someone who can both be sympathetic, but also be like, okay, look, hey, maybe we can do this together. We can, do this in a team and in support, and, who can do this journey with you, no matter what that looks like. I mean, what would you say about the importance of accountability, Dan, in the midst of, both the spiritual stuff as well as the physical exercise and building up a strength?
Yeah, I think it's vital. I mean, some people will come to me not because they don't necessarily know what to do. It is because they need someone to hold them account for it.
Yes.
And that's partly my job. And I think it's very easy, isn't it, to drift with many things, especially at the moment, because everything's up and down, things are changing all the time. It can be very difficult, or very easy rather, just to drift. So I think having someone or a group of people, whether that is a trainer or whether that's friends or whether you're in a WhatsApp group, to hold you account, I think it's really, really important. Yeah. And
let's talk about goals for a minute. All right. So
okay.
Why do you think goals are important, and how do people go about formulating goals? All right. So let's just say you've got people who are tuning in right now, being like, right, okay, I want to get somewhere. I want to, be something. You talked a lot about consistency, but is there a place for stretching yourself and pushing toward a goal?
Definitely. I mean, I wonder whether, we ever really, I think we can set goals, but I think even when we get there, I wonder if we're ever really satisfied anymore. I think I think there's this nature of, we always want more. And I think that's in many places. But I think it's important because I think it does set, it does set the tone of, okay, well, where are we going? What are the things we can do each day to aim for? Again, one of the things I often talk about is doing the small things each day, doing the small things, whether that's around your food, whether that's around your sleep, and whether that's around your training. It's about setting these small goals, because the small things done daily make a massive impact for the future. So I'll often ask, talk to my clients about, okay, where are we going? What do you want to work for? Like, I'll never put any goals on my clients. It's like, okay, what do you want to focus on? Because that way we know where we're going. Otherwise, we're just drifting all around, and that's fine for some people. I think some people they just want to feel good. They don't necessarily have a goal per se as such. They don't necessarily want to lose weight or put muscle or get fit. They just want to feel better, and that's completely fine. But I do think it helps just have some type of something that you're working towards, because I think it keeps you on track. It will keep you motivated. I think when that motivation drops, if if you can remember why you started something. Yes. I guess coming back to what Simon said right at the beginning, if you know your why, again, something I talk about, well, what's your why? Well, if you know your why, then you can know, okay, cool, I don't feel motivated, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Okay.
Whether that's, even reading the Bible, I don't feel like it, but I know I'll meet with God, I'll connect with him. And if not, I've spent 10 minutes just reading some words that'll do good for my soul.
Yeah.
So I think it's coming back to your why. And I think those things help. If you know why you're doing something, it will just give you a bit more motivation. When you can't really be bothered, it'll help you just to move forward and keep taking those small steps. Yeah,
very good. I remember someone using the illustration, like your dinner meals. Okay. And so, when asked the question of why is it important to read your Bible, someone once said, ask the questions. Do you remember what you ate a week last Thursday? Right. And the vast majority of people, a week last Thursday, I've got no idea what I ate, unless it's fish and chip day or whatever. Most people won't know. Yeah. But of course, then the realization of the fact that even if you can't remember what you read in your Bible, the same thing is true, that meal still nourished you, it still fed you, it still gave you the vitamins and the sustenance and so on to do. So, I think it's, just in terms of what you're talking about, it's so important, isn't it? That sense of consistency, that sense of rhythm, that sense of, making sure that something's formulated a habit. I'm going to dive back down into a couple of questions that people ask, but I know there's a little bit of repetition in terms of what we're covering. But Mary was asking a little bit about, what would you suggest for someone who wants to start in personal fitness but doesn't feel like they've got much time or motivation, but recognizes their standards are slipping? Okay, so they might be that there's a little bit of overlap in the question, but what would you say to Mary?
Steve, can you repeat that question? You broke up a little bit as you said that.
That's fine. So what do you suggest for someone who wants to get started with personal fitness but who doesn't feel like they've got much time or motivation, but recognizes standards are slipping?
Okay. Good question, Ray. I mean, I think we've touched upon some of this before. I don't know whether she heard it. I think it is trying to find out. You're almost looking at your week on a, you know, in a sort of macro level. Look at your week and think, okay, where are the pockets of time that I potentially could do something? Not that I will, but where are the pockets of time that I potentially could do something? So I think if you highlight those areas, then it's okay. Okay, now how realistically, you know, if everything goes really well, could I do that? And then it's like, okay, we'll make a note there. There's some of the times where even if it's 10 minutes, could I do some type of work, or could I go out for a very fast walk or something like that? Could I just start by doing something small? And I do believe it is as simple as that. But I also think as well, it could be, you know, asking someone or asking a group, could you hold me account? Like what we said, this is what I'm planning to do. Could you check in with me at the end of the week? Say, I've had 2 opportunities to go for a walk or do some type of home workout. Could you just ask me if I've done it? And I think it is sometimes, you know, when it comes to motivation, sometimes it is a case of just turn up or just open your Bible. And I know that sounds really sort of like, oh, that's not very pastoral then. Well, sometimes that's what we need to do. And I think with exercise, it is about sometimes just turning up, doing something really, really small and just building that habit daily. And again, it's really boring and it's really, really boring, but it works. And I think another thing I remember years ago hearing Terry Virgo, I'm sure many of us know what Terry Virgo is in terms of, you know, he says, we plan for things that are important to us. You're going to go on holiday, you're going to meet with your friends.
Yes.
So why don't we plan to pray? If you plan to pray, you're more likely to do it. And I would say the same will carry over to exercise. If it is important for you, I think we'll make time. It doesn't have to be huge amounts. And again, you're like, yeah, but then you work in a gym, you've got loads of time. Yeah, I do. But at the same time, the principle, I think, still does carry weight. I think if we plan for something, we've got a much better chance of doing it. Doesn't mean we're going to do it, but you've got a much better chance. If it's in the diary, it's on the calendar, you've got to do it. So like, I know personally, like I said, the only time I have really is 5 o'clock. Well, yeah, so the alarm goes at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'll have time in the morning, but I know for that to happen, I need to be in bed by 9:30, 10 o'clock. Because if I don't get in bed, the chances are of me getting up early to do that, it's not going to happen. So I think it is, look at your diary, find some time. Where could I possibly do it? Plan to do it, and ask people to hold you accountable to it.
Really good, Dan.
Hope that helps.
And music, is there a particular type of music, Dan, which is going to transform our lives that you've found to be the most efficient at getting people motivated and passionate about these things?
Well, I like my 90s rap, but I'm not sure I'm not sure everyone will like that. But
90s rap.
90s hip
I
hop.
bet Mike Saunders and KJ Gracie are into their 90s rap. I've got absolutely no doubt. Well, listen, we've got about 5 minutes left. And so if there are anyone who is tuning in right now, and what I'm pleased about is the fact there's a whole bunch of people, particularly who are kind of offering support to individuals in terms of those, particularly who are kind of carrying long-term conditions and who might be able to help. So really pleased. Katie Jo is indeed very impressed with your taste in music, which is a fantastic thing. So guys, if there are questions that if you're tuning in right now and you'd like to ask Dan or I any questions at all, then now is your opportunity. Okay, and so as those things kind of come in, there was something else that I had scribbled down that I was going to ask you about as well. Oh, I know what it was. All right, I want to know a little bit about food, Dan. All right, I want to ask you a little bit about the importance of what you believe in terms of healthy eating. And so, you know, as I was kind of looking earlier, I kind of realized that not only is there encouragements through scripture about, you know, loving the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul and strength, but there's also this talk of, you know, us being aware of the fact that our bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, okay? And Paul even talks about in 1 Corinthians as well, about disciplining our bodies and making sure they keeping ourselves under control. So I want you to talk for a minute, if you're happy to, but around discipline. And the kind of, because obviously discipline is, for some people, feels like a really negative thing. But I'd love for you to share a little bit about discipline, and then particularly around, you know, what your thoughts would be for people who want to think about healthy eating as well. So, you know, where would you take us?
Yeah, I mean, I think first I'd say, like, you know, I'm not a nutritionist. However, you know, I've been around some very clever people over the last sort of 17, 18 years who are, and I've worked with, you know, a whole range of people when it comes to sort of food. So I think some of the things I taught, you know, I've got certain views of nutrition. I think there's so many school of thoughts out there when it comes to nutrition. Vegan this, or don't low GI this, or no carbs. There's so much to it, and I think they've all got their place. So I think it does come down to trying to find out what works for you. But then what I would say is, and I think, I shared this actually on my social media the other day, and it wasn't me, it was someone else saying this. I think when it comes down to it, I think we all know what healthy eating is to a point. Now, we may all not know what the difference between carbohydrates and fats, and when should I be having this, when should I be having that, and how much should I have. But I think we all know that, a Big Mac's not great food. And I think we all know that, broccoli and, lean meat, sorry if you're vegan out there, but, those type of things, I think we all know that veggies, fruits, wholemeal stuff, lean meats, I think we all know that, well, I'm going to assume, but I think it's true that most of us would. Yeah. We know what good food is, and we know what poor food is. So one of the things I often, talked about with my clients, again, it's just about, I don't believe in diets. I believe it's about trying to fit it, like make it work for you and your lifestyle. So for example, if you're someone that loves, I don't know, Coke, yeah, you love a can of Coke every day, I wouldn't say to someone straight away, you need to cut that out straight away. What I would say is, okay, can we start to reduce it a little bit? So for example, if you love a can of Coke every day, could you have one every other day? Or could you have half a bottle or something like that? Could we, I need a chocolate bar after lunch just to pick me up. Okay, could we replace it with something else that's got sweet but maybe not that calorific? So again, you're not changing huge amounts, but what you're doing, you're slowly starting to reduce some calories in people's diets. And again, you do that day in, day out. Here we go again, the consistency thing. But you do that day in, day out over 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 18 weeks. That'll make a massive difference to someone's, whether it's weight or how they're feeling. And what we can start to do is just start to introduce some things into people's diets. So maybe look at your breakfast. Okay, what does a breakfast look? What do you like eating? Okay, cool. Let's see if we can maybe keep that, but maybe just change something you're indifferent to. I just always have that because that's what I have. So, you know what I mean? It's about making these small changes. Yeah. And, I think the reality is we live in a world that everything is fast food. But, I talk to my parents, what they would have had for lunch 20 years ago. They would have probably taken their food with them to lunch. They would have taken some, like a packed lunch or some leftovers. But we don't really do that now. Why? Because it's so much easier to go into Costa or Starbucks or wherever and grab something. There's nothing necessarily wrong with those foods. But again, you do that day in, day out, the cumulative effect of having those things, it's probably not going to be great for your body, but it's just a lot easier and quicker. So if we can start to plan a little bit, that, again, makes a massive difference. But I think the overarching thing is just to try and tweak things slowly but surely, make some small changes. And over the course of time, you should see a shift, whether it's your weight or how you feel, your mood, energy levels, and those type of things.
Very good. It keeps coming back to like doing the basics well and working out what your next step is to do it, isn't it? Yeah. So it's getting good sleep. It's the small iterations in your diary. I mean, we've got one comment here that says we are what we eat. Classic, but there is also some truth in that as well, isn't it? Yeah. Mary's asking here, Dan, just saying that she used to go to the gym but got lots of injuries, and now she's doing Pilates and she's enjoying working. Do we think that that's enough to keep fit? I guess that's a difficult question to kind of answer directly, but
I mean, I guess it then comes back to what's your definition of fitness? That would be another question to ask. What do you like? How would you know you're fit? Does that make sense? So how would you know you're fit? Is it because I think generally what we do is I think a lot of people associate, well, he's a really good runner, so he must be really fit. Well, yeah, that's great, and you may well be fit in that, but what happens when you're maybe 50 and you need to carry something that's a little bit heavy, or you're struggling to maybe pick up a grandchild or something like that? What's your strength like? How's your lower back? How's your knees? How's your joint? So I think it's about looking at a holistic point. So I love weight training, but like that's not the only thing I recommend doing. I think Pilates is great. I think doing something that's going to get you a little bit out of breath is going to be good, but also lifting something heavy, a couple of times a week will have massive positive impacts into your life, especially as you age as well. So again, I think it's about trying to find out, okay, what's your goal? What do you define as fitness, and then take it from there. But I think like there's so many things you could do, but then I think it comes back to, okay, well, what do you enjoy? Because that's the thing that will keep adherence. You'll keep doing it if you enjoy it.
Very good. Very good. There's some really practical questions from Justin, which I'll throw up on the screen. He's asking, and he's a runner. He's a kind of passionate, fit guy himself. But what would you say, Dan, are the top 3 apps that people can get hold of?
Gosh. Very good question. I don't really use any apps, to be fair.
Old school.
Yeah,
pen and paper. Really... I'm a journaler.
What, in terms of sort of like fitness programs, or?
Well, that's what I'm assuming. That's what I'm assuming he was asking the question about.
Tell him to give me a call. I'm joking. Yeah, good question. To be honest, I don't really use any apps. Yeah, good question. Yeah, I don't know.
That's all right. If there are other people who are looking for apps and who have advice and can recommend some best ones for Justin, get yourself on the chat just now. And listen, we're creeping up to our hour, and so I'm going to bring us into land. What I will do is I'm going to bring Jules Burt's comment up, because it's a kind of fun one to land on. Dan, you're so good at breaking the big stuff down and making it feel achievable. Guys, start with your why,
Jules.
Recognizing the spiritual and the physical are all tied together. Work out what your delicate next steps are. And if you need to, then please feel free to reach out to Dan. I've got no doubt I'll be able to point you in the right direction, or I'm sure I'd be happy to chat to you in a work capacity as well. But mate, I just want to say thank you so much for being such a consistent, loving man as far as our church goes, but also for helping so many people in the community in so many different ways, mentor and in the fitness things as well. So, mate, God bless. And I'm going to leave it there, all right? No worries at all. Guys, thank you so much for being with us. I hope you enjoyed this evening's catching up with. And what we're going to try and do is we're going to get into the rhythm of doing it every fortnight here on a Sunday night at 8 o'clock. And so watch out for these coming up. What we're going to try and do is if there are particular subjects you want us to cover, then you can message me, steve.wilson@kingsarms.org, and we'll see what we can do as well. But I've got a few bubbling in the pipeline too. We want to talk about the miraculous. We want to talk about faith and finances. And we want to talk about the relaunch of various things that we're doing at church. And so I shall look forward to doing these things in the future. God bless you. Have a great night. Thanks now.